everybody. You have joined Innovate BC this fine Wednesday afternoon in partnership with Can Do. So it's great that you're here. We had a week off. So now we're back at it. We're taking in the good knowledge, the good stories. You know, we have so many amazing people who bring their knowledge, that bring their expertise, that bring that inspiration, so that helps us to do better in our organizations and in our communities. You know, we're just these poor, pitiful two-leggeds. We're trying to make it in this beautiful world Creator has given to us. And I really believe this. We need all the help that we can get. We need our ceremonies. We need our stories. We need our elders. We need our knowledge keepers. We need moments like this, where knowledge is being shared, so that we can become stronger, we can become better, we can build our own capacity, because, you know, life is meant to live in its fullest and to bring the best of the best. So I really think we got the best of the best this afternoon. We got a special guest speaker. Tanya's joining us. But first, I just want to take a moment and acknowledge the goodness and the gifts of Creator, that we do not walk alone. We are surrounded by all of our relatives, the animals, the plants, the sacred waters, other two-leggeds. So we just want to give thanks to Creator for all the gifts that have been given to us. We also want to give thanks for the tools and the support, you know, the news that we are hearing out in James Smith Cree First Nation, the devastating news. So we know that Creator is with us. We know that Spirit is with us. We also know that we have the capacity to be able to surround that community or those communities that have been affected. So today we pray, but very soon there must be action that follows that. So we just want to take a moment to honor and acknowledge the tragedy that has happened in the communities in Saskatchewan. Okay, so thank you for joining us, all of our guests. And again, feel free to use the chat box. It's there for you. Let us know where you're joining from. Throughout today's presentation, there might be some questions that arise. Please use that chat box. I will make note of them. But at the end of the presentation, there is plenty of opportunity for you to bring your questions, perhaps a story, your comments to this conversation. So we would love if you lent your voice to today. The webinar is Indigenous Knowledge Systems and Change Management, which is essential to effectively implement incremental or transformative change. So Tanya Tourangeau, she's a reconciliation strategist. She will share how she applies the 4 C's. And I just have to say, side note, I love alliteration, so I'm super stoked. How she applies the 4 C's to change management processes and adapts concepts of ADKAR to include Indigenous Knowledge Systems. So a little bit about our guest speaker. She's a proud Dene First Nation from the Northwest Territories, currently living on Treaty 6 territory here in Alberta. Strongly believing that we can build this nation better, Tanya's work focuses on bridging partnerships between Indigenous and non-Indigenous governments, organizations, and communities. So her background is in leading reconciliation through joint economic development, policy development, strategic planning, stakeholder relations, and organizational change. So she has worked for many Indigenous and non-Indigenous government, non-for-profit, and for-profit organizations to create meaningful, large-scale systemic impact. Holy smokes, we're here for it. We're here for it. So thank you so much. So Tanya's vision for her Indigenous-led consulting business, which Tanya T Consulting, truth, reconciliation, and collaboration. Indigenous peoples and Canada thrive together. All right, well, let's give a round of applause for our guest speaker, this mover and shaker. I just know it. Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. And I'm just going to pass the virtual mic to you.
Masicho, Michelle, thank you so much for a wonderful, wonderful welcome. Thank you everyone for taking time out of your day for joining me today and sharing some knowledge with you. And I just want to say, like, the 4 C's, and if you weren't at the previous webinar, my 4 C's are ceremony, culture, connection, and collaboration. And just the way that Michelle opened up this webinar, the way that Can Do provides this opportunity is an exact example of how 4 C's can be incorporated into our work lives and our personal lives every day. So Masicho for demonstrating that for us today. I'm going to start with my own personal land acknowledgement. I'm here in Amiskwachi, Waskagan, which is Cree for Beaver Hills House, which is Edmonton. It's on the traditional lands, meeting grounds, and gathering places and traveling routes of the Cree, the Saulteaux, the Blackfoot, the Dene, the Nakota Sioux, and the Métis, whose histories, language, and cultures continue to enrich our shared heritage. I strongly believe in having land acknowledgements. Although you won't find it on any of the 94 calls to action, it's an unofficial call to action. It's so important because we've been a part of this land since time immemorial. And, you know, none of our creation stories has us starting out on the other side of Mother Earth. Our creation stories are right here in Turtle Island. And we truly believe that, you know, science just hasn't caught up to us yet, but soon they will. I'm just going to start sharing my screen. So Tansay, Nasi Kasoon, Kihu Magween Nisquao. I'm sharing with you my spirit name that was given to me recently, which translates to Eagle Feather Woman, and installing that culture and ceremony and connection right at the beginning of today's webinar. It's also very meaningful to me because the Cree elder who gave me my spirit name just a few days ago is, you know, from Musqueam and connected to Can Do. And one of the ladies who's been hosting these webinars and doing amazing things with Can Do, Daniel Lightning. And it further demonstrates those 4 C's of collaborating together and lifting each other up through ceremony and culture. And I'm really pleased to share that with you. I'm still learning myself and learning to live into my spirit name, and really honored to be walking this journey. I'm Dene First Nation, originally from the Northwest Territories. I come from a family of survivors of residential schools, and I consider myself a cycle breaker and a bridge builder. A cycle breaker because, you know, I became pregnant when I was 14 years old. I became a mom at 15. And I decided with my oldest son that everything stops there, that things are going to be different for my children, that even though I come from a family that suffered through intergenerational trauma, that I was going to make a better life for my children going forward. And a bridge builder, because I wanted to see a better tomorrow for my kids. And there was no way to do that without walking in both worlds. And it brings me to be able to share my knowledge here with you today and continue on my journey of providing reconciliation across Canada. I cheat very much with these pictures because they remind me of why I do what I do. My children are young men now. This is a picture of them, their first day of their powwow. And it's just a beautiful reminder of going back to, again, those 4 C's. And, you know, a lot of times with our work, especially if we work for non-Indigenous companies. They want us to leave our Indigenous selves at the door, our culture at the door, our heritage at the door. And I'm so not a part that I think that we need to welcome who we are, every part of our life, to live that balanced life. I've been a part of many change management initiatives throughout my career. I've really focused my career on building capacity in various ways in Indigenous communities, more so in economic development and joint economic initiatives between non-Indigenous and Indigenous. But I did have a fantastic career with the government of the Northwest Territories as well, where I was a part of technical and the people side of change. And so in today's webinar, I'm going to share with you my concept of IKS change management, and basically how I've adapted. If you're familiar with change management strategies, there's many teachings out there. And one of the teachings that I like is one from ProSci, which uses ADKAR and really is a people approach to change. And I've adapted ProSci's approach of ADKAR to include the 4 C's and really honor our Indigenous frameworks, our natural laws. And depending on who I'm doing the change management strategy for, business and reconciliation call number 92, or including UNDRIP within it. There's no one template for change management using the 4 C's. And really, you're going to see that there's that opportunity to align the 4 C's and the complexity of change management to the degree of change you're seeking within your organization. So just taking a minute to reflect, I'm sure that most of you came in thinking about the change that lies ahead with you within your work. But if you're not maybe familiar with system-wide change, I'm just going to share a couple of stories of my examples with change management system-wide, specifically referring back to my career with the government of Northwest Territories. One example was developing a new LMS system, a brand new learning management system that not only advertised training opportunities, but tracked learning opportunities, and basically was a government-wide system that all employees would use, but would also assist them in their learning and advancing them through their career. Now, with this project, there is the technical side of it, designing the new processes, understanding how those processes worked, what change would come from it, how it needed to be developed, but also the people side, the change management side. How are people going to embrace this change? What training is needed? How are they going to maintain that change and still stay within their jobs so we don't lose good people? And when it comes right down to change management, that's what you want to maintain. You want to maintain the happiness within your workplace, within your organization, so those good people don't walk away because you're introducing change in a way that is never going to be adopted or never going to be successful. Another example with the same position was introducing manual performance management. So going from doing paper reporting of annual performance management to e-performance. And with that project, I was very much, again, a part of the people side, because you have to really ensure that people are ready to adopt the change and understand what their connection to that change is. But don't get me wrong, along with change management, you have to also be very familiar with the project side of it. If you don't understand the technical side of change that's going to come in your organization, your change management plan is never going to align. So although I'm going to focus today on the people side, the change management side, and very little on the project side, please ensure that when you set up your change management plans, that they're aligned to the project management plans overall of what change is going to come. So what is change management? If you're thinking about the ADKAR approach, change management comes with understanding how to change the one person in your organization. If you can understand how to change one person, then you can develop the process, the tools, the support, the techniques to manage change for your entire organization. So change management encompasses that all, understanding how to change one person and then applying all those tools. Yeah, we'll get to ADKAR. I'm building it up. How all those tools together work together for the change management strategy, so to speak. Now, if you don't plan for change, if you don't have an effective change management plan, there's so many consequences that are going to hurt your business. They are going to hold your business back. And that's why change management is so important. One example that you may be aware of from the federal government is when they introduced the Phoenix system. Now, if you're not familiar with the Phoenix system, it was a brand new payroll system that they introduced that was supposed to save money. It was going to decrease jobs. You know, it had all these flashy benefits to doing it. Problem was, the project management plan wasn't aligned to the change management plan. And to this day, the federal government is still paying for the failures of those plans. It's cost people their whole credit histories. People have lost their houses. You know, they've lost great employees in the federal department because they couldn't get paid. Can you imagine how terrible it was to, you know, be dedicated to your job and you couldn't even get paid, and it was going months and months and months, and you were depending, thinking, oh my God, eventually they're going to fix it, and they never fixed it. They actually had to reverse to the previous pay system and start from all over because they failed to plan for effective change and how employees were going to adopt this change. So the primary reasons for applying a change management strategy within whatever change that you have coming within your organization is you want to increase end user adoption. You want your employees to stay and you want to successfully implement the change because you've already identified that this change is going to be good for your organization. And you want to manage the resistance to change because very often there's going to be, you know, one or two employees, they're not going to be ready to change, or they're going to be like, you know what, I'm so old, or I'm so used to this. If you don't plan for that, it's going to snowball into those consequences that you're not ready to deal with. And by having a change management plan that you can actually capture the data you need to understand how successful the change is being implemented across your organization. So going to the example of using e-performance for performance management, using automated over manual, the data that you get is you capture how many employees are then completing their performance management online and how many are not, how many are in progress. You know, that data will lead you to understand what more training is needed, what more coaching is needed, you know, what more support is needed for your employees to adopt that change. And you want to build change competency within your organization because change is constant. It's never going to stop. Even as you're planning for change, you're going to have to always monitor and reevaluate your change management plans because things change in the economy, funding changes, employees change, management changes. And so change management should always go hand in hand with any of your project management initiatives, your strategies throughout your business planning, your organization planning. Now, getting to the big question of what is ADKAR? So for those of you who haven't had a previous ProSci training, and you can get certified in ProSci if you're seeking to further develop this knowledge. ProSci is PROCSI, and typically they do weekend trainings. They do 2-week trainings. Maybe you can even get your organization to do a group training where they certify you as a change management agent. And what they do is they walk you through all these building blocks and you develop a change management plan, and that's how you get certified. And typically a course costs about $3,000 to $4,000. You're getting it for free from Can-Do today for 1 hour condensed. So ADKAR stands for awareness, desire, knowledge, ability, and reinforcement. And Can-Do is going to provide copies of these slides for you. So if you're like fearlessly trying to write, don't worry, you will be provided all this information as well for free today. Well, maybe with membership, you could say that was your cost. So these are the building blocks of change, and depending on the complexity of change is how much attention you're going to pay to each of these building blocks. But each of these building blocks need to be a part of your change management plan. So let's start with ADKAR. ADKAR, the A of ADKAR. A stands for awareness. I'm just trying to move my camera over there. So change begins with understanding why. You're never going to get end user adoption to be successful unless they understand why they have to change. And again, this comes back to understanding what makes one person change. If you can understand that, then you apply that to the group. So the questions that your employees, your members, your stakeholders are going to have is, what is the nature of change? Why is it needed? What is the risk of not changing? You're going to have to build up this information within your change management plan, your communications plan, to ensure that everyone understands the answers to these questions. So how do you provide these answers? You got to have the access to information. When you're ready to launch your initiative, you have to have all this information ready for your employees and make it readily available, whether it's online, whether it's printed form, whether it's posters. I also like to promote having events. You'll see later on in the process, those events should include culture and ceremony, ability to connect, and ensuring that it's local culture and ceremonial. And within that, there's a need for this change within the organization, that this is going to help everyone. This is a win-win situation for everyone. And that's the start of A. And you're going to determine how much awareness you need based on the engagement within your employees. Now, if you go on to further training, they'll give you a basic assessment that maybe you will do a survey after some events, after some information is involved. Talk to a few employees. How much are they aware? Do they need more information? How long does this phase need to go on? Because it'll be very difficult to proceed to the transition or future state of change if you don't have enough awareness built. Just think of when you want to change yourself. If you don't understand the change that's needed, you're never going to take the steps. So have to be fully aware, have that education. If there's too much education, that's better. Too much education is better than not having enough access to information that only a few people know how to get to. And by providing enough information, you're going to, counter a lot of resisting factors that you're going to have to work in with your change management plan. Not everybody is going to be ready. So by having enough awareness education, you're going to counter, that comfort level with your status quo right now. People are like, what? Because they don't want to change. And also you're going to counter, any rumors or, misinformation that might get out because of the change. So always think of what risk factors that may be involved by not providing enough information. And the second building block is D, desire. Again, understanding that change starts with one person, that everyone is going to make the personal decision to change. What the ADKAR approach says is that the organization doesn't change, it's the person within the organization that changes. And people are going to change at their own journeys, their own length of time. And so some people might go right through and understand, yeah, I know that we need to change and I'm ready. And other people may need to take their time. So just thinking about that group perspective when you're developing your change management plan. So the questions that employees are going to ask themselves, is what's in it for me, so that they can make that personal decision, that personal choice to engage and participate in the change that's needed. Building factors within your plan is going to be, what incentive do they have for change? So going back to e-performance, an incentive is that by doing your performance management annual report online, is that you could better succession plan for what's to come. You can align your goals throughout the year to the goals of the department and really ensure that your work plan is aligned to the mandate that's given to you. So by having employees understand that it's going to make their work easier, faster, more effective. This is what I mean by incentives, not necessarily financial incentives, but I mean, everyone likes gifts and, rewards and, maybe having some swag as well. And understanding the fear of consequence of not doing what's needed to change. Because if people don't continue doing what you need them to do, it's going to hurt the business. It's going to hold people back. What are their personal consequences? And overall, is that building of community, having those 4 C's to build that connection, those relationships, is going to increase the workplace culture where they want to be a part of the change together, because it's going to be a better outcome for the organization. So further building on that motivation of desire for change. And K is knowledge. So you've built up awareness, you built up desire. When thinking about the change management process, A and D make up the current state. The transition state then goes into knowledge and ability. And I'll show you this in an upcoming slide. So knowledge just starts with a transition. Your employees are ready to change. They know they need to change. It's coming. They're signed up for training. They know the benefits. So that K is that they're ready to learn those new skills, those processes. They got the tools to do it. And you've built within your change management plan all the tools that they need to get through that phase, that transition phase. Again, understanding, some employees are going to be quick and some employees are going to be slow based on whether, it's a technical change, it's something that's always been done that way. However, no, not all employees are going to change together, and you have to work that in your change management plan. The next A through your transition state is the ability. So now they have the knowledge, now they have the ability. So change requires action in the right direction to giving them the opportunity to test it out, that within the training that I've provided before and many change initiatives is that you can create, if it's a technical change, a test environment to go and practice, or having a good instructor to provide that ability for you so that they could see how to do that, especially when you're dealing, with people who are not familiar with computers, or, that they don't even know how to use their phone to, sign into various HR, finance applications. Like there's so many ways that change management can help your employees do better, but also provide, better efficiency for yourself, for your organization, to improve your business results. And the only way you can do that is like ongoing coaching, committing to time to your employees to make that change together, and celebrating the change, again, thinking about all through this process, how are you incorporating the 4 C's into there? How are you creating a sense of community so everyone can celebrate together that change, that success? Because once you're able to do it successfully once, the future change is going to be easier and easier, and people are going to understand that you're an organization that wants to improve, wants to be innovative, but also wants to honor the employees through this change management process. And the last building block is you need reinforcement. But you need to monitor as well before reinforcement. You need to have that data. You need to have those check-ins. You need to understand, what are the milestones through this change, and understanding how those milestones align to the overall project management's milestones, and ensuring that they're aligned so that this is not change that's going to be reversed. This won't be the Phoenix system that's going to be scrapped and be ridiculed for years and talked about. That this is something that's going to be a success within your organization and show that your company can compete in the marketplace, and that your employees are there as a team, as a community, as a culture, in change and in working together. So I mentioned how the transition works within applying ADKAR. A and D, the awareness and desire, makes up that current state. The K and A, the knowledge and the ability, is that transition state. And the reinforcement comes with that future state, what you had in mind in the first place when you first started this change initiative. And going back to organizations don't change, people within organizations change. And don't forget that people connection with your change management plan. The understanding, again, that if you can manage how one single person changes, you can have those tools, those resources, that support for the whole organization to change together. So what you're looking for when you successfully, have that one person who's ready to change, is that these change management outcomes. So when you create awareness, the person would be saying, I understand why we need to change. When you create desire, it's like, I've decided to, come along with the change. I can't wait for the change. I'm ready for the change. When you've provided enough knowledge, I know how to change. And the ability, I'm able to, and reinforcement, I will continue to. So if one person can successfully answer all those questions, then you can further develop those tools to have successful change within your organization. Now, organizational change management further builds upon ADKAR with these 5 levers. I at first considered adding the 4 C's to these levers, and I was like, but that would be 9 levers, and that's like way too many levers. So I was like, no, we'll keep the 4 C's separate. So the 5 levers that you must work into your change management plan, and this is directly from ProSci. I really haven't adapted much of ADKAR from ProSci's, if you want to say, approach at all. I've just added my 4 C's to it. So if you take this training, you'll see that they also recommend that within your change management plans, you're going to have a communication plan. You're going to have sponsorship. Now, your sponsorship should come from leadership. And basically, they'll be your champions of change. You or your project team will be the change agents. Your sponsorship will be the champions that are going to promote the change, enforce the change, sponsor the change. You're going to have coaching and training. I'd actually have the training first before the coaching, because how do you coach if they don't know how to do it yet? But ProSci didn't hire me as a consultant to fix their slides yet, but that's something I'll change. And you have to have resistance management within your change management plan. You have to plan for those naysayers, for those people who need extra awareness, education, knowledge before they're even going to try the ability to try to adapt to the change. So again, further building upon how I include the 4 C's, my IKS change management, and IKS, I'm going to move my camera again so it doesn't look like I'm looking crazy sideways. IKS is a concept that really started in South Africa when they started their Truth and Reconciliation Commission, and they actually have IKS federal department within their government. IKS is embedded within every part of every department or every government. And I just think that it is very, very adaptable. And really how I use IKS is interchangeably with Indigenous frameworks of sacred teachings, natural laws, UNDRIP, and the 94 calls to action. So IKS change management is, again, understanding how one person makes a change successfully, and then having those tools, including the 4 C's that project teams and managers have to support the people side of change. Now, getting to IKS change management process. Ensuring that those 4 C's are present throughout all of the processes. However you see fit within your project team, within your sponsorship team, within your leadership team, that fits also for your local culture. The main processes, again, the process is still keeping in with ProSci's approach. The first phase is preparing for change, managing change, and then reinforcing change. So when you're ready to start building your change management plan, applying the ADKAR process with the 4 C's, I encourage you to start with ceremony and culture. Whether it's having a knowledge keeper or an elder, if you want to say sponsor the project or open the project, or have a ceremony to open it, like whether it's a sweat, whether it's a round dance, whether it's a feast, really identifying for you and your organization where you're ready to introduce ceremony and culture and what's appropriate. And within that, identifying deliberately how you're connecting and collaborating together. It's not enough to say that you're going to incorporate the 4 C's, just like identifying your communications plan, identifying your connecting and collaborating plan. Where are you leaving time for relationships? How are you collaborating? Is there a Slack channel? How are people communicating? So to give you an example, some of you know from the previous webinar that I'm a consultant with cooperators, and we're developing their first reconciliation strategy. And we've adopted this IKS change management approach in conjunction with the developing of the strategy. And so what we've agreed to with the Connecting and Collaborating Ceremony and Culture is that at minimum, each employee of the collaborators can attend one knowledge sharing session with a knowledge keeper, one cultural learning session with an elder, a sharing circle, and participate in a community of reconciliation practice on Slack, where they can document their personal reconciliation journey. So there's so many opportunities for employees within this change management plan for those 4 C's throughout the month of developing the reconciliation strategy. And we felt that that's so important at the cooperators because this is a very large corporation of 6,000 plus employees that span across Canada. But they're not only embarking on a strategy that they've never done before. You know, reconciliation is new to them. And by no way means are we going to solve, you know, everything in call number 92 with one reconciliation strategy. It's not going to be solved in 3 to 5 years. Just like it took, you know, 150 plus years to get here, it's going to take generations to get out of, to be equal in Canada. So that these 4 C's are going to be ongoing, and we need the employees to cooperators to really unlearn a lot of what they've known to date and to think outside of the box of what future reconciliation strategies could be, where I want to empower them to be all of the same knowledge level. So together they can come up with ideas that create amazing win-win possibilities within the group. And when you're lastly preparing for change, you're identifying, of course, your project team and that all important leadership sponsorship champions that are going to help you move your change management strategy forward. The second phase is, again, you know, don't count out the 4 C's. Always plan with it within it. If you don't plan within it, you can't add it after the fact. Non-Indigenous people aren't going to let you do that. They're going to be like, it wasn't in your original work plan or schedule. Sorry, we don't have time for your round dance. Put the time, put it in there. Put to be determined. You know, you could say, no, sorry, the elder is going to determine when it's going to come and pass it off, you know, and someone else, but make the time for it within there, along with the other levers that are needed within there. And having the understanding that, you know what, there's so many times corporations come to me and they're like, no, have you heard from the elder for the event for next February? And I'm like, yeah, no, I'm not going to contact them till like January because no elder has, you know, this extended timeline. So, you know, push back on colonial ways of doing things and honor the way that we do things as Indigenous people, that we're not going to plan cultural events 2 years in advance, but you're going to leave time for culture and ceremony in there. And when the details come, are the right time for those details to come. And it's not going to be the way non-Indigenous people do it. So with the second phase, you have your communications, you have your coaching training, again, your resistance management within there, and you're implementing those plans. You're taking on and adapting them as well. I want to encourage that, you know, oftentimes, again, with the colonial way of doing is once you have a plan, it doesn't change. That, you know, to be flexible within your plans, your communication plans, with your culture, your ceremony, and your training and your coaching. That oftentimes that in the non-Indigenous world that it's okay to say, you know, we're not ready yet. And with change management, that is so important. And with the last phase is you're reinforcing the change. This is so critical because without reinforcing the change, people will revert to the old ways, that they'll find workarounds to the change, that they'll find shortcuts and ways to undermine the change because they don't understand the need to continue it and nobody's monitoring it. So having that reinforcement within your change management plan, again, continuing with the 4 C's, getting out and understanding how your employees feel about the change, you know, talk to them, see how they felt the process was, you know, what was missing from your change management plan, what could have been added. Do they know everything still about the change that happened and the benefits of it? So then you could diagnose those gaps and manage continued resistance of the change. And if you need to, you know, you could have corrective actions. Do you need more training? You know, do you need more brochures about it? You know, do you need more people to come out and coach and mentor people through the change? But you won't understand that unless you talk to people. And change management, going back, is the people side of change. So if you don't know how to help that one person change, you're never going to fully realize how much success you could have had with your change initiative, with your project that you're trying to implement. And above all, is celebrate successes, you know, identify those milestones all through the project, as many as possible, not just at the end. You know, that it's okay to celebrate, you know, 5% user adoption, you know, building up to you want 90 plus end user adoption, you know, to celebrate sponsorship and leadership of your change management plans, you know, to celebrate change at all, the desire to change and the need to be competitive in the market. You know, when it comes down to it, that nobody's changing just because, that there's reasons for change, there's benefits to change. And we're EDOs, you know, we're all in economic development. We want capacity building. That a lot of times it comes down to money. And wouldn't we want to spend our money way better places, you know, and build more initiatives, build more success for our people and redirect that? And by having effective change management plans, you know, we can preserve our money. And again, not be like the Phoenix program. It's so funny they named it Phoenix, like how oxymoron, you know, where it was a terrible flop. They didn't rise from the ashes at all and save the federal system. So you have to ensure that everyone is involved in implementing change, that everyone has a role in your change management plan, that, you know, it can't be done in silo. You can't do the 4 C's in silo. You can't develop it in silo. You can't implement it in silo. So ensure that you identify how everyone could be involved with the initiative, and ensure that they have a voice within your plan and they feel a part of it, so that there's, again, that ongoing sense of belonging, and you increase motivation to adopt the change and be successful with the change. And that's my last slide, everyone. I want to say Masi Cho, that's how we say thank you, and Dene. It's my email up there. I do have my own website. People are like, why don't you have like Tanya T at Tanya T? But, you know, there's so many email addresses that I was like, no, I'm just keeping it this right now. So I still use my Outlook account. Feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. You know, more connections, the more we know what's going on in Indigenous world. You know, there's so many opportunities out there, and we have to share, we have to connect, we have to collaborate. and leverage these opportunities together. I'm on Instagram, but I'm barely on there. And I'm also on Facebook and pretty funny on Facebook. And I don't mind if you join me on Facebook too. You know, Indigenous people, we like to, it's like white people add us on LinkedIn, Indigenous people add us on Facebook. I'm that kind of Indian, you know, I like that. And I say Masi Cho, thank you to everyone who reached out. You know, feel free to email me. I'm sure that there'll be further learning opportunities to come. I'm here for like 8 more minutes. If anyone has any comments, questions, I'll pass it back off to Michelle.
Well, thank you. What a rich time. You took me on a journey, and I was just thinking about some of the organizations that I've been involved in. And it took me to back to that celebration. Like there was a lot of change that has happened, but we never celebrated once. And so I'm calling for a celebration as soon as I'm getting off of this call. So you brought some really good knowledge. I found it to be very empowering as well. So thank you so much. So enough of me. Anybody else? We're open up the floor here. Anyone have a question, comment? We invite you to come on in, unmute yourself, put it in the chat box. There's a lot of thank yous in that chat box. I know the chat box blew up when you said you're offering this moment for free, when some of this knowledge, you know, you paid $3,000 to $4,000 for. So thank you. All right, Bonnie.
Hi. Thank you for having this beautiful meeting. Oh my gosh, I may be one of the newbies that didn't know about ADKAR, and I've been in public relations and helping the community change and adjust to something new coming on. So it's a big project. How do you get a whole community on board and, you know, trying to affect one person? Well, that job is over, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. The community connected. I have more connections that way. But when I come to one company in particular, you know, and let's say you got 20 employees or, you know, 80 employees, to put a presentation together or to management, my question is, how do you know, set a budget for something to go in and create change as a person that will analyze a business and try to put through the company in a format that says this change is going to be beneficial. You know, a company wants reactions and action fast, but in ceremony and culture, there's the process, and there's a moment to say it's going to take time. So when you put all this together, my biggest question is, you know, is this a scenario you're teaching that we could then put a budget together to help a company create this change? Or are you setting it like, once you're in that company, you're not a contractor, but once you're in that company, you know, I'm not sure how to handle that, because I'm pretty much more of a contractor type of business builder. I hope that was clear.
No, it was so clear. I get it because I get a lot of pushback from this too. And you know what I start with, Bonnie, is like with my with a trick up my sleeve, with my best, most dynamic knowledge keeper or elder, and invite them to a session. Do you know what I mean? And get them hooked. But it can't be just any, it's got to be that one that even, you know, that never lets you leave their house. You know, we've all been a part, you know, conversations with those elders that know so much and are so knowledgeable, whether it's even just about, not just, whether it's about traditional knowledge or specific to the business, and invite them. Like I even invite them to powwows. And I've attended a can-do conference with vice presidents of Starbucks. Okay. And get them to experience how we do things, how our way of business is. I can't tell you enough. I had a vice president and business developer sit with me with 3 days at a can-do conference. And from now, they totally understand, you know, that how culture and ceremony has to fit in there, and how it's so important, and how you can't rush it. But I think we can't say that enough, because we all know as Indigenous people, but they have to experience that in a genuine way and try to provide that for them. And then I'll just give a plug to Alberta Mentors, who's one of my contractors I work with. We have an upcoming Knowledge Keeper series where we have George Desjardins sharing knowledge next week. And on the 20th, Adrian LaChance. And we have recorded webinars of Muslim Elder Rick Lightning, who I spoke of earlier, and Elder Muriel Lee on our website, albertamentors.ca. Like giving opportunities for them to learn more about our knowledge and how we do things, Bonnie.
Oh, thank you for that. Yes, it's about giving that community sense right away. And that, you know, if you're holding the key, they want it. It's a good way of sharing this, that, you know, this is why the change is at this pace.
Exactly. Exactly.
It's really good. Thank you.
Thank you, Bonnie, for bringing that question here. Okay, Alana, I saw your comment in the chat box. Do you want to jump on?
Sure, hold on.
Hey.
Okay, I don't know if you can see me. Okay, well, can you hear me?
Absolutely.
All right, so Tanya and I worked together in the government of the Northwest Territories, and back in 2015-16, we took the Pro-C change management, and Tanya was the one that developed our learning and development calendar, which was a new online enrollment and all of the stats and everything that we have been able to use since then. So I just wanted to say to everyone that change takes time, especially for government. So just, Tanya, so you know that since we launched the learning development calendar in 2015, there's been, employees are now enrolling online and taking courses through the calendar. And we've had 46,000 courses enrolled, employees enrolled since 2015. And in 1920, with our last annual report, enrollments went up to 16,635, which was a 50% increase from the year before. And so it's our jewel. It's everyone, you know, in terms of 5 years, the reinforcement is and the reasons why employees use the calendar, it's become their right hand. And it's just one of those things that we're just so proud of. I just wanted to share that.
Wesley Show for sharing, Lana, and thank you so much for being a part of my journey with GNWT. Lana is a fellow Indigenous rock star who's making changes for our government and our people. And thank you for supporting me in that way when I was there, and your continued to support as an Indigenous woman. Wesley Show, Lana.
Wow. Well, I really believe that is a great way to end today's webinar, that story, that inspiration, that example, and that little piece of knowledge that it does take time. And so thank you all for being here this afternoon. What a great webinar. Thank you so much for your knowledge, for your stories, your inspiration. I feel richer because of this moment. So thank you. And y'all, I hope we see you again very soon. Thank you for joining us as you go along your day. Always take a moment, go onto the land, go onto Mother Earth, connect with Creator. Remember that you're not alone. Offer those good prayers. You know, we're meant to walk in this world in a good way. And even with that trauma that's happening in Saskatchewan, that heaviness that we hold, because we feel it too, we connect, we make those spaces and those times to connect with Creator, community, the land. So do something good for yourself today. Hold on to this good knowledge that has been passed and walk your journey. So thank you all for joining us, and we'll see you again. Peace.
Thank you so much.